All right, I hope everyone has emerged from meditation and has stretched and started to feel good. Today's talk is on paradox. Have you ever been hooked on a book as soon as you read the opening sentence? Has it ever just reached out and grabbed you and you needed to know more from the opening sentence? The greatest opening sentence in all of literature, to my mind, is the one penned by Charles Dickens as he begins The Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief. It was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. So powerful. When Charles Dickens wrote this sentence, he wrote it for a different audience at a different time and place than ours. But it might apply to any of us, anywhere, at any time. It is nearly timeless with what it evokes from us. It was an adept usage of paradox to illustrate the human condition. But if the human condition is illustrated with paradox, then which side of the paradox should we emphasize to make sense of things and make sense of our lives? It's confusing. The meaning of the word paradox has several explanations in the dictionary, but the simplest way to think about it, I believe, and I am a simple person, is that two things can be true at the same time, even if they're contradictory, and even in the same sentence. And paradoxes seem to be everywhere. In science, paradox resides chiefly in physics, in quantum mechanics, and in the theory of relativity. As that great spiritual physicist Terry Dearmore pointed out recently, time is fast, time is slow, and time may not exist at all. Well, that clears up a lot. In mathematics, it's proven to be impossible to reach a destination by taking steps which are halfway to your destination. And that's because there's an infinite number of halfway points. Well, we're getting nowhere fast now, aren't we? Now, the election opponent of Dwight D. Eisenhower in the presidential election, Adlai Stevenson, pointed out a paradox in political science. He said, if the pursuit of peace is both old and new, it is also complicated and simple. He goes on, it is complicated for it has to do with people, and nothing in this universe baffles man as much as himself. That is deep. It is profound. It's no wonder the man did not get elected. As far as human relationships go, what can be more paradoxical than a love-hate relationship? Or why would we need the term frenemy? Of course, they're paradoxical. In human relations, indeed, greatness often comes in opposing pairs. Think of Da Vinci and Michelangelo, Edison and Tesla. Ali Frazier, Demas and Long. Of course, you can stretch this a little too far, but you know where we're going there. And paradox is also present in spiritual teachings. But surprisingly, spiritual teachers have used paradox to try to clear things up, to clarify things. A paradox in itself. William James, in his work, The Varieties of Religious Experience, claims that an idea to be suggestive must come to the individual with the force of revelation. Spiritual teachers often find the use of paradox useful in balancing our intelligence with our intuition to try to achieve this force of revelation. They attempt to enhance the creative expression of divinity. Confucius used several paradoxes in his work, The Analects. Lao Tzu wrote a spiritual manual, the Tao Te Ching, which is just filled almost completely with paradox. The Buddhists, of course, have Zen, and they also have what is called Buddhist koans. I might be mispronouncing that a little bit, but I'm not Buddhist, so that's okay. It's koans, K-O-A-N-S. And what these koans are, they're self-paradoxical riddles that Buddhists meditate on to try to expand their intuition. And let me give you an example of one. Here's an actual example. Without speaking, without silence, how can you express the truth? I think this takes some practice. Some of the most widely quoted and effective spiritual paradoxes with which we are familiar, however, are the ones that were used by Jesus on the Sermon of the Mount when he delineated the Beatitudes that are found in the biblical book of Matthew, chapter 5, verses 1 through 12. Now, the Beatitudes are paradoxical statements which describe people who have a saving faith and will inherit a place in heaven. Jesus refers to these as the foundations of his kingdom, a kingdom which he described in a previous chapter of Matthew as being at hand. Perhaps he meant this sermon as a guideline to living in the present, or perhaps for the afterlife, or perhaps both. In any case, they seem important. So we are going to explore each one this morning. I will give a brief sentence on each one, telling you what I think the spiritual lesson of each is. Now, I know what you're thinking. Entire books have been written on the Beatitudes by learned scholars who certainly could give better explanations than I. And yes, you're right, that's true. But as I tell Patty Jean when she criticizes my handyman skills, yes, someone else could do it better, but they're not here. And besides, the good thing about me doing it this morning is that we will be finished well beyond the time it takes to get a good seat at brunch this morning. So let's get started. Most theologicals count 8 Beatitudes. I personally count 9, but we'll do it their way, and I'll tell you about the 9th later. The first paradox, the first Beatitude, is blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. There's a reason this one is first. And it seems to me that the poor in spirit are blessed because they are the ones who are still searching for meaning, and they may find it. The second beatitude, blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Those who mourn are the ones who feel love and support from the good people, and they become closer to God in their prayers and in their vulnerabilities. The next paradox, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. It seems to me that the meek enjoy their blessings while they're on earth, while the powerful and the type A's, somewhat like myself sometimes, we're scrambling and we're chasing after things that we can't even put our finger on sometimes. We don't take time to enjoy our blessings. The fourth paradox is, blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they will be filled. Well, people who do the right thing and try to make the correct choices are the ones who have peace of mind, aren't they? Blessed are the merciful, for they shall be shown mercy. Well, the old adage is that what goes around comes around. So it's best that we start the cycle with something that we want to see come around. The sixth beatitude is, blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. The pure in heart are those that express the characteristics of God, and they're the ones that enjoy inner peace, aren't they? The seventh beatitude is, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. In the 11th chapter of Isaiah, verse 6, it is written that peace is a time when the wolf shall dwell with the lamb and the leopard shall lie down with the kid. Anyone who attempts to facilitate that has to be a child of God. And the eighth and final beatitude is, blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Well, simply said, doing the right thing gives one a clear conscience. Other people may be upset if you practice kindness and tolerance all of the time. We see that every day. Do it anyway. Well, those are the 8 beatitudes that the theologians point to. Yet, in conclusion, you need to hear what I think is the 9th beatitude. I'm going to edit it a little bit by adding the phrase "and his teachings" when I mention Jesus, and I'm going to abridge it a little bit. But feel free to look it up in Matthew chapter 5 to see if I'm giving you the right spirit of things. It goes something like this. Blessed are you when people insult you and falsely claim evil against you because of Jesus and his teachings. For in the same way, they persecuted the prophets who were before you. In other words, people may not understand when you exercise your principles. However, when you emphasize the side of the paradox that Jesus does, if you emphasize love, mercy, peace, forgiveness, kindness, inner peace, and tolerance, then you will be in good company. And good company is what you deserve. Amen, and thank you.
Um, have a nice week, everybody. I have no uh, lot to think about, and I love that your talk was about the Beatitudes. Um, I have not read them in some time for some time, and I've really enjoyed hearing about how you wove them into some of the the basic teachings, the construct of Jesus' teachings in not just the Beatitudes, but in everything he taught. Um, it's just beautiful message. So everybody unmute and share your thoughts on today's message, please. Just raise your hand. We'll call on you, or I'll call on you while you're still muted. Yes, Bob.
Thank you very much, Leon. I have made a decision that I'm a Christian if I believe in the teachings of Jesus. And the Beatitudes are, in the summary, the total teachings of Jesus. And the most difficult of all is the last one that you described, that he, I think, meant in all 8 of his. The 9th is, man, we have a challenge to accept what we have believed all our life was unacceptable. It's difficult to forgive ourselves for the stupidity of our bullheadedness and to seek a way, a means of a moment in time when we would see the possibilities of reaching out to the person who we've negative thoughts about and say, I forgive myself for the thoughts I've had about you. And of course, he doesn't want to hear it or she doesn't want to hear it, but we need to own the reality of our struggle with that. It is extremely difficult to see someone we've been thinking evil about as have a potential to do amazing good if they decided to think like I do.
Thank you, Bob. Yes, that's true.
Can I
Yes.
say something?
Jane, please.
You're starting off with the paradox really, really hit me. That was beautiful. I needed that so much. I've spent a lot of time in my life being fascinated by the paradox when things pop up. And I've often thought that when you really hit a paradox, you're getting close to truth. And I think that's what you were getting at today. It was beautiful. And it sort of flows into John's message last week, which was, on simplicity, and that was very powerful for me. So, hey, we're on a roll, guys. Thank you, Leon. It was really good.
Thank you, Jane.
John?
Thank you. This is one of the best talks I've ever heard with this group. It was focused, great language, and the pace was just right. I have no shortage of praise for this talk today, Leon. I appreciate you. And along with the idea of paradox, a personal note, I deal with paradox all the time. I'm always trying to feel, see, and understand all of the differences and similarities all the time. I know that's a huge statement, but to see how all the faith traditions can come together, that's a passion of mine. And there was a beautiful job you did to acknowledge the idea of Zen. It's a possibility that Jesus might have traveled to the East, and he might have learned and incorporated other faith traditions in with his Essene teachings and the Jewish, Judaic teachings too. So thanks, Leon.
Yeah, beautiful. You know, Leon, you think of, I don't know, you never trust a person who can only spell a word one way. So P-A-R-A, para. How about how Jesus taught? Parables. There's incredible. I mean, there's so many reasons why we should revisit the Bible. Even if we don't believe everything is exactly the way it was supposed to be or true to some degree, there's just so much wisdom in God's Word. And you have brought that home to me again today, so thank you.
The point that Leon made with his ninth parable is exactly what John just spoke about. The belief in a certain scriptural truth in and of itself embraces the belief that I'm a believer and I'm special. Well, you're not. I'm not. Specialness is making real the ninth parable and owning that you've got to change your mind about, as my wife Patty constantly reminds me, get the log out of your own eye before you criticize someone else's view of things. We don't know anything. The earth denies surface tension. The liquid forms into a perfect sphere if it is allowed to be liquid enough. Thank you for this message.
Okay, maybe one or two more comments before we stop the recording.
Yeah, so yesterday Frank and I went to the Richmond Folk Festival and met this one gentleman who actually lives up here in Fairfax County. And he's part of this organization that we belong to, Connecting Consciousness. And he is Michael Lloyd White, who is actually an ambassador to World Kindness. He's from Australia. It started there, and he has traveled all over the world talking about kindness. And he was the ambassador to the United States for this organization, Kindness. And he was talking about how amazing it is for organizations of all sorts who resist kindness to put it into their organizational policies, and even cities and states and governments. And it's just, you know, like you say, people resist kindness. And so, yeah, it's, you know, it struck me, and it kind of is a paradox to me, like, why we have to learn about kindness. How did that become removed from our psyches or our behaviors or beliefs, or, you know, however you want to present it? And yeah, so actually we're going to have a World Kindness Day in November. I think it's like November 17th or something, or a Virginia Kindness Day, I think, and I'll let you know what that date is. And yeah, so and the Beatitudes, it's almost like I was thinking, those should be our commandments, you know, because I think they're more proactive, you know, and I understand the paradox between Long and Demas. I got it. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Janice, for another talk. Title right there.
The paradox between Long and Demas.
Jody?
Yeah, again, thank you, Leon. Really, really appreciated it. The thing that struck me was the paradox you mentioned, that things are complicated and they're also simple. You know, it's complicated to do this and it's simple to do this. And what makes it complicated are the people and all their ulterior motives and all their personal stuff. But if you just look at the issues, it's simple, you know, what you need to do. And so that I'm going to keep that one with me for a while whenever I thinking of how complicated something is, or when I'm making things more complicated than they need to be. You know,
The law of horizontality.
the law of horizontal, that's a story Zach will need to tell sometime. And the other thing I was thinking about kindness, just then, and why, you know, why is it that kindness is, you know, has to be taught or whatever? I think that over, you know, millennia, probably, you know, kindness is associated, and it's maybe a another paradox with something being threatening. You know, if somebody is being kind to you, you don't necessarily think of it as, wow, thank you. You know, you think, what do they want? You know, what do they, especially in the workplace or whatever. If you're trying to work really hard to improve something, and it seems like you're doing it out of altruistic motivation, then it's resisted. People feel threatened because they don't know why you're doing it. Why are they being nice? Why are they being kind? There must be something behind it. And I don't know how you get rid of that, but it's just something that I thought about while we were talking just then. Anyway, I just really appreciate your take on the Beatitudes as well. I've heard them preach several different ways, and that were, you know, it either didn't make sense or tried to make sense out of them by resolving the paradox and saying, well, they're talking about the future. They're not talking about individuals. They're talking about mankind. They're talking about, and I just really appreciated your take, and it just was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jody.
Yeah, Leon, maybe you could do us a favor, not to put you on the spot. If you look at your notes, could you give us Leon's number 9 again?
Well, yes, I wrote it down. Blessed are you when people insult you and falsely claim evil against you because of Jesus and his teachings. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. So you're in good company.
Okay, there it is, folks. We got it twice
Mhm,
on the
mhm,
recording.
mhm.
On a humorous note, maybe, you all have heard your own paradoxical statements, you know, like military intelligence or whatever. So, anybody like to share their paradoxical statement? Can you think of one? Yes, John?
Thank you. I think it was William Penn, the statesman, who said, wrong is wrong, even if everyone believes it. And right is right, even if no one believes it.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so the people around us don't necessarily have to change our thoughts, but we can have the opportunity to vindicate ourselves, first within ourselves. And if we know something is true for us, then for all practical purposes, it is true. So when we're right, let's just stick with it. So, yeah, I'll stop there.
Okay. You know, it's kind of maybe not a paradox, but I remember, and I use it so often, Mark Twain. I've experienced so many terrible things in my life, and some of them actually happened.
Mhm, mhm,
There is much noise and silence.
mhm,
Much noise and silence.
mhm, mhm,
Good one. Anybody else before we stop the recording?
mhm.
Okay.
I always think about the one thing.
Did you want to share something, Zach, before I stop the recording? I'll get you later anyway. You know that.
Yeah.
You gonna wait?
I'm gonna wait.
Okay. We'll put you on the wait list. Here we go.